respective professional development certificate. Special accommodation and support for students with disabilities, presented by Dr. Nafis Sultana. Before starting the module, let me remind you again how to receive your certificate and other important guidelines. To access the recorded sessions and get your certificate of completion or attendance, you need to register in the ADU community portal. Step-by-step registration will be shared with you via the chat box. Participants who submit the final reflection will receive a completion certificate. The deadline will be 15 December 2021 at 11:59 p.m. Abu Dhabi UAE timing. Participants who choose not to submit the final reflection will receive an attendance certificate. To have access to translation during the session, kindly download Microsoft Translate. The IT department will provide you with the code during the session. During the session, you can write your comments in the chat box. You can also use the Q&A option in both AHA Slides or Zoom to ask any questions related to the topic, and the presenter will answer questions accordingly. You can also use the raise hand button on Zoom in case you want to speak. Dr. Nafis Sultana is a qualified and experienced counseling psychologist working as a senior counselor, Dubai Men's College, Higher Colleges of Technology. She is a licensed psychologist, social therapist from Community Development Authority, Dubai, and has over 20 years of experience in the field of counseling and dealing with students of determination. Her commitment and passion are to make a positive impact on the lives of individuals through counseling. Her area of expertise includes counseling services, student affairs, creating best inclusive practices, recommending appropriate accommodations, assistive technology, assessments, behavior difficulties, mental health disorder, including anxiety, depression, and many more. She is highly proficient in conducting seminars, workshops, training, and awareness programs for students and faculty. Dr. Nafis, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much, Maha, for the great introduction. Dr. Mohammed, Teha, and the entire management and team of Abu Dhabi University. Thank you very much for giving me this platform to talk to you about special accommodations for students with determination. Now, students of determination is a term that is used in the UAE, as you are all aware of. And I also thank my institution, the Higher Colleges of Technology, for where I've worked for over 15 years. And I'm here today to talk to you about my experience and bringing the educational pedagogy of dealing with students of determination. So let me just share the presentation. And are you all able to see? Maha, are you able to see
Doctor,
the slide? Okay, great.
Yes, Doctor, it's very clear.
Thank you very much. So in today's presentation, I wish to focus on the students of determination in higher education. I'm sure in this platform we have professionals and special educators, teachers, and all the concerned stakeholders who are responsible for students in their journey from school to higher education and beyond. So this presentation will address not just students of determination in higher education as such, but also will focus on understanding a student journey through college life, the various types of disabilities which students, come to college with, the students who are able to make it to higher education with the various disabilities. The accommodations will be the targeted area of focus in today's presentation. The multidisciplinary team approach, which is very essential in supporting students of determination towards their success in graduation, in their academic pursuits. And the last bit of the presentation will help you understand the relevant accommodations for the various disabilities that you may encounter in your career path in dealing with students with determination. So to begin with, we'll have to first help understand that for all educational purposes, students of determination is one with a documented disability who meets the academic standards for admission. Be it school, be it college, there is always a requirement for admission processes. To enter into college, a student will have to write the MSAT to enter into college, and based on the scores, the student is placed into different programs. So there are, however, a few students who could also be exempted from the MSAT requirement, but those are very few, with certain deep disabilities by which they are not in a position to give the MSAT. So largely speaking, for all practical purposes, a student has to meet the admission requirement to enter into college. So in the life of a student who enters college, is it easy for him or her to access college life? Is it possible for him to succeed given the academic demands or the learning needs that he or she may have in college? There are various paths, or there are different procedures in place to enable these students to move in their journey of college right from the day of admission. Now, even before admission, there is a governmental body called NAPO, which is the National Admissions Placement Office. This is usually the body which does the initial screening with the school records, etc., and tries to understand whether the student has a medical issue or a determined condition or whatever, and flags this to the college. Now, at campus levels, there are teams which review the medical records and understand to see if the student can get admitted and whether the student can succeed or not. So once the screening processes are over and the admission happens, as I told you, the student has to meet the admission requirement, and this differs from university to university. So once the student gets admitted on campus, adjusting to college life becomes the first and foremost responsibility of the campus, the staff on campus, to help the student get adjusted to college life. So the student goes through series of orientations, understanding of the campus as such, orientation of understanding what is where on campus, what are the services available for the student, and where he or she can seek for support or help. This is done at different levels. It is done at an academic level, it is done at a non-academic level, it is done by the academic services of the colleges, the student services of the colleges, the academic unit, which comprises of the head of the department, the deans, the directors, the faculty. So the awareness happens at different levels by different stakeholders to ensure the student gets accommodated to the first few days of college life, and he starts to understand better what is required and what is where of the college. So these awareness sessions, these face-to-face discussions, the meetings that that the students get to have from different departments helps him or her to understand what are the various programs, what is the scope of each program, and allows the student to understand. At another level, the student gets screened if he or she has a difficulty, an impairment, or disability. The counselors, the special needs or the disability officers, the inclusion champions, there are different words that are given to the psychologists who are dealing with the students' psychological, medical, and their disability needs. So understanding the determined condition is very, very important. The sooner the student gets a hold of, what the college can provide, the better for the student. So the team gets to understand the determined condition, expects the student to submit all relevant documents. It could be a medical report, it could be a psychological report, it could be sometimes academic reports from the school, which can very clearly indicate that the student is a slow learner or the student has undergone issues in school, which will require focus and attention in college as well. There are meetings that are conducted with the parents to understand the students' functional capability at home. And also, there are a few observation records that the counselors also conduct to understand the complete determined condition of the student. So once this is ascertained, accommodations are provided. There are several ways a student can be accommodated. Accommodation, what I mean by accommodation is not housing, but special accommodations are special provisions or special arrangements that are provided to students to help them succeed and be on par with the students who do not have a determined condition. So these special accommodations are provided to students who we believe require accommodation support, who have a determined condition or have a disability, in other words. And with the student, the counselor or the psychologist or the special education disability specialist is able to meet, understand the student's condition with the student, and the combination of the stakeholders where needed, ascertain the list of special arrangements for the student. And this is done differently in different colleges. Like at the higher colleges of technology, it is done through a determined one's workflow, where the student with the counselor reviews, understands, and accepts the special arrangement support that the college can give the student, and it is submitted through the workflow, and the approvers get to approve it. The approvers are usually the relevant stakeholders, and once it gets approved, the student starts receiving the accommodation provision. And time to time, at every given instance, these students are able to track their accommodation support with the help of the counselor through regular checks and progresses. So when all this is done, even opportunities like extracurricular activities and co-curricular activities, participation in clubs, in sports, etc., are thoroughly encouraged for such students so that they do not feel discouraged or disadvantaged. So once we discuss all this in terms of support, it becomes a process for the student where different stakeholders come to support the student to ensure that the student succeeds. And finally, the student is able to successfully graduate through the journey of higher education. Now, to understand in easy terms, there are different categories of students with determination in higher education. As you all are aware, the most severe conditions usually are not able to make it to higher education, because the demands of higher education that is put on the student is very high for a student with a severe condition to succeed, because the no standard or no curriculum is compromised based on the determined condition. So only students who have certain level of cognitive ability, or a physical ability, or an intellectual ability, or a psychological ability are able to succeed in higher education with the provided support that comes from every institution. Like I would say or mention at this point, every campus varies in their level of accommodations. We call them reasonable accommodations. The reason why we say reasonable accommodations is because the quantum or the number of services in terms of accommodations that are provided to a student varies from college to college, university to university, depending on the ability, the capability, the resources, the infrastructure, and a lot more, due to which the institutions are able to provide certain accommodations and not able to in certain aspects. Like, for example, to include students who are blind, it requires a lot of resource on the part of the institution. So usually students who have visual impairment, you know, let's say severe optic nerve issues, or blind in one eye but have vision in the other, or issues where there is blurry vision. And in some cases, the students are just wearing specs like any one of us, and they are able to see very well. So usually students who make it to higher education are those who have visual impairment, even speech impairment, such as stammering, stuttering, sometimes even communication difficulty. They may not be able to understand. Their receptive language is slightly compromised. So in the process, the expressive language can also be affected. Hearing impairment, sensory neural loss is the most common form of hearing impairment, where the students are not able to hear clearly, but with hearing aids, they have some sort of hearing ability. Physical impairment, those who are on wheelchairs with compromised mobility, labored hand movement, or difficulty in walking, or they have clubbed feet where they have challenges walking. Sometimes imbalance. They have even the spines which are twisted, which makes it very difficult to walk straight. So physical impairment, learning difficulties. I'm sure you all are aware of the various learning difficulties, which include dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, etc. So intellectual disability, low scholastic intelligence, again, borderline mental retardation are again some of the students who somehow kind of manage with, let's say, vocational skill set and courses. Psychological issues, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and even autism spectrum. I would like to take the questions by the end of the session. Thank you very much for all the questions that are coming up. Okay, but I will like to answer them towards the end of the session. So, sorry. So let's move on from here. Okay, the other aspect that I would like to throw light on is the fact that apart from students having disability, or students who have an impairment or difficulties as well, there are several students who also join institutions with medical issues, chronic ones. The COVID-19 pandemic was the time when we saw the maximum number of students who started to come up with their medical conditions. Till then, it was only the very severe cases which required accommodation support. But since the pandemic, we have many more students who started to show up with different kinds of medical issues. So somehow, when the moment we look at the medical report and we know that the student has a condition that requires accommodation, we request the students to submit the accommodation, the request through the workflow. So he or she gets tagged as a determined student again. He or she may not have the disability as such, but medical conditions such as cancer, such as cardiac conditions, or even diabetes, Crohn's disease, progressive muscular dystrophies, even temporary. We also have another aspect to disability, which is the temporary disability. In this, we include surgeries, fractures, dislocations, or times when students have to undergo minor changes due to skin problems, let's say, where it is contagious. So there are medical conditions which also surface to go on to be a determined condition simply by means of them submitting the workflow requesting for accommodations. So this is clearly the background to which we identify students to be determined ones, where they are completely disability related, and also the other aspect which is medical related. Now, talking about students with disabilities, limitation, there is, when we talk about disabilities, we do have to take into consideration that they are limited in their activities compared to their peers who do not have determined conditions. When students come to me and say, I have a heart condition, let's say the Breguda syndrome, they say, where the student is all the time on an external machine to breathe. Okay, in such circumstances, can he or she go into sports? No, that is a challenge. Even students who have epilepsy, for example, students who are battling or getting treated for cancer. Now, students who have physical disability, who are completely compromised and who have to be on a wheelchair for any sort of mobility. So these are students who do have limitations on the activities or the opportunities that the institution provides for them. So these students with their impairment do it somehow have other sorts of issues, particularly not being able to participate like everybody else, suffering with low esteem, their difficulty to even advocate for themselves. These are other challenges that students face invisibly, that is not clear to anybody's eyes. So with participation and with restricted participation, with the impairment, with low esteem and the limitations that they have to deal with, it becomes very difficult for such students to advocate for themselves. So this takes me to the next slide, where I would like to highlight to you the discrepancies that faculty, staff, and people at the higher educational institutions usually find among students. And what is that? The ability to write sometimes comes and goes for a few students. There is intense anxiety which is experienced during exams. I was just in the beginning of this session, I was talking to Dr. Mohammed about the fact that it was an examination period, and there are so many students who are experiencing acute anxiety, panic attacks, severe stress disorders, insomnia because of the anxiety. So these are issues that students with determination get to somehow experience more than the other students who do not have a determined condition, because of the challenges that they have to constantly grapple with. So again, discrepancies can be seen in mathematical concepts. By the way, yesterday I had a student in my office who was trying to somehow cope with the computer information courses. Okay, and he is a determined student who has borderline intellectual disability and mental retardation, but he was so confident about doing the computer information course. And after one semester, he came to me yesterday asking me if there is any possibility to understand what would be easier for him based on his challenges. So for quite a few students, mathematical concepts, coding, he said coding was very difficult for him to understand. So when we talk about skill set, it is quite natural that quite a few students have difficulty grasping mathematical concepts. Memorizing is a challenge, especially when it comes to the faculty observation. I've heard a lot of faculty members telling me that students are having poor concentration, their organization skills are very bad, they forget deadlines, their time management is very poor. And these are several aspects that you can somehow see as comorbid conditions to students who have disabilities. As I spoke to you about self-esteem and confidence, which is low for these students simply because they are disadvantaged in a few areas where they see their counterparts do very well. They get being forgetful. Again, what I would like to emphasize here, it's not that all students experience all of these discrepancies. It changes from one person to another, but from an experience point of view, it's usually these flags or these signs that immediately show up within the first few days of college life, which the faculty are able to pick and bring it to the attention of the counselor. Now, what is it that the teachers and the faculty or the staff can do to support these students of determination? Most importantly, please become more and more aware of the rights, the rules, the regulations, the policies, the procedures that are related to students with determination. For those professionals who work in schools, I think KHDA has many regulations for the determined students. And for those who are working with higher educational institutions, it's very important to understand the federal law, the laws that are concerning students of determination, people of determination, the policies and the procedures that the institution has for the students, and implementing all the models to support such students is very important. That is the social model, the instructional accommodation model, the emotional support, the assistive technologies. There is a plethora of resources that are available around. We just need to understand how we can use this to support our students, and to know how to use it. We first need to be aware of what's available to ensure support. And how can we do that? where possible, when possible, attend training programs, identify and make sure we are able to support these learners through the training that we receive, the conferences we attend, the seminars we go for, these targeted talks that that institutions plan for professionals in the field really makes a difference in the life of individuals. So particularly the visible disabilities, it's quite easy to accommodate, but it is the invisible difficulties or the disabilities is an area that requires extra attention, extra focus, and we need to use our magnifying lenses to sieve, filter, and look deeper to understand invisible difficulties. What are the invisible disabilities? Learning disabilities. They are not easily visible to the eye. Attention deficit. It is not so easy to understand attention deficit unless you read between the lines, or when you understand what causes attention deficit, or when a student in class or out of class displays behaviors or symptoms related to attention deficit. Now, this understanding is very critical, and one can have this understanding only when you become sensitized and aware and train yourself to even understand that we need to somehow be there for students of determination. It's a call. It's on us. The onus is on each and every member of the society to include students or people of determination. So one of the ways to do this is to also work closely with students who are at risk. Now, what do I mean by students at risk? Usually those students who have been experiencing tremendous amount of personal issues, family issues, relationship issues, disability issues, are at a greater risk of being dropped out from colleges. So how do you attack this? How do you understand this? Right from the beginning, when you are tracking their GPA, their academic records, you would know when a student is moving into the at-risk category. And very surprisingly, you will see a connection between students of determination and being and falling into the list of being at risk. So you have to watch out how and when these students of determination come at risk. Now, what is being at risk? When your GPA is lower than necessary, which is lower than the basic. So when a student is not able to academically achieve, it is a reflection of many, many things beneath that. The low academic performance is only the tip of the iceberg. There is a lot beneath that runs into each and every student when a student comes at risk of being dropped out. So there is a lot of effort that goes into identifying these students and supporting these students to do well in their academics. So what is it that I'm trying to explain on this slide? The education system is such that there are courses, there is a course requirement, whether it is the student coming to campus to do the course or the student is doing the course online. It is immaterial when it comes to the curriculum as such. There is very little scope for the modification in the curriculum, particularly in higher education. So probably in school, modification of curriculum was possible in certain areas. Exemptions were possible, but in higher education, the system is still not very adaptive to modification of the curriculum. So how do you cater to students of different systems? students of different disabilities, students who cannot be on par with their non-disabled peers, right? So this goes back to the understanding of the left brain and the right brain. Every student has its own strengths, its own weaknesses, his or her idea of selection of courses. Some students are forced into universities to do certain courses. Some students go by choice. Some students in the middle understand that it is not working out for them and they change their program. Whatever be the situation, within the policies and the procedures of your institution, you are mandated to follow all of them and at the same time accommodate these students. So how do you do that? One of the ways to do it is incorporating different learning styles. When we talk about students of determination, whether they are students of determination or they do not have a determined condition, every student has a learning style or a combination of learning styles. Auditory is when a student is able to is able to understand, comprehend, and learn very well through listening. So that way, finding out information, making lists can be a very good way to help such students. The visual learner is one who learns very well through images. So drawings, diagrams, using online images, programs can really help students who are visual learners. The kinesthetic learners are those who are hands-on. So these are the people who will enjoy labs, field trips, arranging visits to different institutions where learning can happen, different activities where they can use their hands to understand, experimentation, etc. Persistent learners are those who can sit on tasks for the longest period of time, who can sit on something, finish the learning, and then walk out only when they are done. These are persistent learners. The global learners are those who immediately look at the overview, understand the big picture, and they are able to grasp the subject. Now, short tasks, frequent breaks can benefit such learners. Social learners are those who are very good in working with groups, in discussions, presenting in front of the class, etc. And the other few types of learners are metacognitive learners, who are very good with problem solving, thinking skills, creative skills, innovative skills, and of course tactile are again hands-on and model making students. So why am I talking about learning styles? Whether you are teaching or whether you are addressing a student to help and support the student, we can keep in mind these different styles to reach out to the student. When you are able to understand the student's style, learning style, it's easier for any individual, be it a teacher or a counselor or any person who is working closely with students who are determined ones, will be able to learn better when you incorporate different learning styles in your methodology. From learning styles, let's move on to skill sets. Okay, we are focusing on the skills here, and we will be focusing on some of the skills that are very important, which can make a very big difference in the life of students. Reading skills, especially, allowing the students to read, teaching the students how to read, talking in front of others, making presentations before others, so teaching them how to summarize concepts, teaching them how to highlight what is important. This can even not just improve the speed and fluency, but also helps the student to read better. The student starts to read better once the student is trained into reading skills. Let us not forget that these are students who have a good skill set. As much as the stereotypical thought process may take you to think that they have a lot of deficits. I would say they come with a massive skill set, and this skill set can be fine-tuned and polished through improving and working and focusing on their skills. So especially when the schools are able to pay a lot of importance to these skills, it makes it that much easy for the student to enter confidently into college life. Writing skills. Many students are given assignments, but are they actually taught how to get started with assignments? I know students coming to me and saying, Miss, I have a presentation to complete, but I just don't know how to start. The assignment is as such not very difficult, but I just don't know from where to start. I don't know from where the ideas come in. I don't know how to write my first few lines. Once I get started, my mind starts thinking on the same lines and I'm able to proceed. But do I know how to get started? No, it's a challenge. And these are little tip, through a little bit of support, through a little bit of training, students get to understand how they can get started with assignments. Some students have issues completing assignments. They get started, but they don't know how to proceed. They don't know how to finish. So in the process, they are not able to complete and submit in the deadlines that is given to them. So these are students who struggle with how to conclude. So writing skills are very important. And if the teachers can spend about 5 to 10 minutes in a week to just touch upon these few very, very important skills, it takes students a long way, because they would have learned how to get started. They would know how to conclude an assignment. They would know how to create an outline before writing. Some students without a base just start writing and they don't know what to do with it. They need to learn that there should be an outline. There has to be a plot in mind based on which they will develop their stories. So these are skills, if taught in school, great. If not taught in school, nothing is too late. These are skills that can help students deliver much better academically. Frequent reminders about deadlines. It doesn't hurt, but every now and then, if the students are reminded about the deadlines, you can be sure they will never miss deadlines, because students who have determined conditions have many, many comorbid conditions. They are forgetful, they do not pay attention, they are not too organized, and in the process, they do not track the deadlines, they forget the deadlines, and end up getting 0 for no fault of theirs. It's just a comorbid condition of their disability. Again, essay writing skills. Essay writing is such a big part of learning. How to brainstorm ideas, how to organize, how to sequence topics, put it in order and link it to each other. There has to be a flow in the story. So how do we do that? How do we train our students to do that? Just a few minutes in a week, 5 to 10 minutes, where you can spend on, helping or sitting with a student. You can do it one-on-one, you can do it in the class to benefit everybody. So the choice is yours, but these are skills that can go a very long way to help students do well in their studies. Even study skills. Many students struggle with exams because they do not know how to study. Helping them to revise the last 10 minutes or the previous day or just before the exam, how to organize their presentation and to present it in the form of writing in the exams, how to work on revision schedules, how to take notes during lectures. Now again, note taking is a skill in itself. Taking notes through online information that is necessary, taking notes through the lectures, taking notes through presentations that the students are, sharing. So there are several forms of note taking. So are we encouraging the students to take notes? Because students with disabilities do struggle taking notes, and some of them are physically not able to take notes. So what is the support we provide to such students? Attention, concentration, and memory. Now, this has suffered big time, especially during the pandemic. The students went on lockdowns, and for days and days together, corners of their rooms in their homes became the school, became their learning zone, became their resting zone. So there was no demarcation of learning and free time, or the time where they could allot to non-academics. Some of the students believed attending class was enough for them to pass their exams. No, studying is another story altogether. So in the process, paying attention, staying on task non-stop for the longest period of time really had a bad hit on their attention, concentration, and memory. So teaching simple things like establishing of eye contact, asking questions that can help them to refocus, redirect, 2 minutes of break in between important points where the students can relax and come back to refocus. Few memory techniques now and then given to them, and a little bit of homework for follow-up can make a very big difference to students who are students with a determined condition. Structure and organizing skills is something which is not taught to them on a formal basis right through schooling. So when students come to college, we notice that they have difficulty in organizing themselves. They don't know that, okay, this is my schedule. There is a lot of free time in between my AM class and my PM class, and I just don't know what to do with myself. So what do? They are either loitering around on the campus, or they go back home and come back. They just don't know how to utilize their time in the in between free periods that they have between classes. This is just an example to give you an understanding as to how the students can actually struggle. Once they understand that these are the times they can use efficiently, this is the way to go about their tests. They don't miss their tests, they don't miss the deadlines. They know that in between the tests there is this much of time period for them to revise. So all this requires a little bit of training, and it does not happen automatically. Many of the students are not trained to organize themselves. They lack structure. So to the best extent possible, the professionals, the teachers, the educators, the faculty, it is somehow their responsibility, ethical responsibility, moral responsibility to teach these students the skills that are needed for their overall development. So just to be fair, and we all know that for all the students, the testing is going to be the same. Okay. If you look at this, all the animals know that to get selected, they must climb the tree. Is that possible at all? Students with determination are not able to get this at all. So having said that, there is a lot that can be done to support such students. So coming to talk to you about some of the special accommodations here that the teachers can provide. Now, what is it that you can do to include students with disabilities in your classroom? By presenting an outline of the whole lecture in the beginning itself, you're helping the student to understand the big picture. The student needs to know that this is what you're going to be talking about today. Providing them with some photocopied notes of what is important can make a big difference, so the student can go through as the lecture is in progress. Some of the keywords can be printed, and you can use bold letters instead of cursive writing, which makes it easy for the student to read. The visual learners will very beautifully take an image of your capital letters or your bold writing into their brains to reproduce rather than cursive handwriting. Breaking down of tasks to small and easy pieces of information again makes it very easy for the student. Now, in the class, what are the other accommodations you can think about providing? Some of the students, particularly those who are having hearing issues, need to be seated in the first row, the front row. Okay? If students have social anxiety, if the student has panic attacks, it is always better to make the student sit in the last row. Students who have physical difficulty, like a lumbar issue, they have back issues, it's always good to give them the corner of the room which has a wall so that they can lean against the wall and rest. So even in seating, these are simple things that you can keep in mind when you have students with difficulties. There are a few students who do not like to sit in the last row. They feel insulted. Now, again, this is a condition which they have grown up conditioning themselves with. So when you speak to the students, you would know, and it's very easy to help such students. Okay. Students with, again, hyperactivity, attention deficit, need to be seated close to the door at times, because in hyperactivity situations, the student needs to walk every now and then to redirect himself or herself. So when instead of disturbing the entire class, if the student is seated near the door, it's easy for the student to take a quick stroll and come back. Okay, and you can always give the you can always give the last few minutes by the end of the lecture for the student to approach you and clarify the doubts. Okay. Now, the next continuation are the assignment instructions that can be very clearly given step by step. When you try to assess the student's work, also look for the content and the meaning rather than the grammar and the sometimes the student's work is shabby. It's not because they want to be shabby, but it is somehow their brains that condition them to have produced work a particular way. While some students can give very neat presentations, some students can be clumsy in their presentations. So we need to be aware that this is the capability or the capacity of the student, and we need to overlook the clumsy part of the writing. Okay, encourage the student to show you a rough draft so you know where the student is, if he has not got started at all, or if he or she is understanding it in the right perspective. So this form of help can not only facilitate the student to submit on time, but also submit a good version of the assignment or the writing. Peer tutoring is heavily encouraged. Some students can actually can get paired with buddies who are very good in studies, who help them in the note taking, in pushing the wheelchairs if needed in and around the campus, and so on and so forth. And this is one thing I always talk in all my training programs when it comes to students of determination. Wherever possible, whenever possible, however possible, whatever you believe is important, just repeat, repeat, and repeat. If the student is daydreaming, if the student is zoning out, if the student is trying to redirect, you can be sure at some point of time the information will get registered. I know this is a lot to ask for, but it is not difficult and it is very much possible. Anything you believe is important, anything you believe the student has to remember or keep in mind, make sure you repeat as many times as possible. I'm moving on to the next set of accommodations that can be provided to students of determination, and that is the examination support. For examination, there is a lot you can provide, and at the same time, there is much that is not possible. Again, as I told you, this varies from institution to institution. So depending on the resources, the examination accommodations can be provided to students of determination. So some of the accommodations are providing tests that are easy to read, where the instructions are clear. Handwritten tests sometimes can be a disaster. So I'm sure all the tests are, typed, and the students are being given tests that are easy to read. Stating directions which are clear and simple. Many students don't get the instructions right. You will still have a few students who walk into an examination with the mobile phones. You will still find few students so anxious that he or she has to use the washroom many times. There would still be a few students who believe they can take their laptops in, and they have other material stored in their laptops. So it is not that they mean to do it. Giving them the benefit of doubt, many students get to miss clear instructions. So miss instructions. So it's very important that the directions or instructions, whether it is exam or a class test or a final exam, the instructions should be given in very clear, simple sentences. The language should be simple. Wherever possible, short answers, multiple choice, match the followings, or the blanks, true or false, can be given to assess such students. It becomes easier for them without compromising their ability. Giving students well ahead of time examples on how the question paper is going to be helps them come better prepared and test what is being taught. I'm sure a lot of professionals here on this platform will agree with me that sometimes the students are being questioned on topics which are out of the syllabus. And this can really put the student at a major disadvantage. Therefore, as much as possible, test only what is being taught. Divide the tests into different parts, so that the students are not rushed into completing lengthy tests. So if you can break the test into 2 or 3 parts, it gives student that much of time to prepare, and at the same time, without stress, give the exam successfully. Separate invigilation, a separate room where the student is able to take the test. Of course, again, this will depend on the resources of the college. Separate room for students who have very chronic conditions, particularly after the pandemic. Separate room for a student to get insulated from any type of noise, so that he is able to focus better, he or she is able to focus better while giving the exams. The separate room can be given to the student who has hearing difficulty, so that he is able to use his hearing aids and able to get the components clear when it comes to writing. And of course, extra time accommodations are given to students so that they are able to use that time to complete their exams because of their slowness. So I'm moving on a little bit more detail into the examination accommodations. I will be talking to you about the way tests can be administered in different ways, which includes scheduling, which includes test setting, test presentation, etc. So when we are talking about test scheduling, we are talking about the timing provided to complete the test. Usually, when students of determination are given extra time to complete their tests and assignments, they are able to get a fair opportunity to complete it in a comfortable manner. Even breaking the tests into 2 or 3 tests over a period of days will help the student to prepare better and appear better to get good results. Test setting, for example, it is the testing environment. I spoke to you about a separate room. Okay, it could be the student can be given a separate or a private room. The student could be having a one-on-one discussion with the teacher, and the teacher is able to mark the student on the way he presents on a one-on-one basis with the teacher, or the student can be put in a small group where he's still comfortable with the group to talk. Students with stuttering, students with communication difficulties, students with severe anxiety disorders can find it very challenging to talk or present in front of a big audience. So test settings are a very important accommodation, which does not require much of resource. It only requires a bit of planning and dedication from the teacher. Test presentation, again, this involves the way the test is being presented to the student. As I told you, blind students will require in braille format, the teacher giving copies to the lectures, the teacher allowing the students to take to record lectures, and even printed material that is given to the students plays an important role in how a student gets tested. Now, again, instruction, as I told you, the way the teacher repeats, the way the teacher gives instructions in clear, simple sentences, this can also help in reducing the difficulty of assignments. Reducing the level of reading can be one of the accommodations. If a student has difficulty with the reading, then he or she can be given another form of testing. The student can be given a written assignment instead of a reading level assignment. Giving again a peer to read for the student, for the determined student, can make a big difference. Okay, now test responses, again, accommodations that give the individual the opportunity to demonstrate knowledge by alternate means. So in testing response, what happens is, for example, a student has severe communication difficulties. The speech is compromised. Can you allow the student to orally give the exams or dictate the answers? No, this student has to be allowed to giving the exam in the texting format. Right now, using word processors or written work also sometimes can be difficult for some students. So because the student is not able to write. In these circumstances, the student should be allowed to verbally give the answers, and the scribe is able to enter the answer. And sign language, of course, in certain severe cases where the student is just not having the ability to talk, where the student is non-verbal. Now, again, non-verbal students, I don't know how many institutions are having the resource to accommodate non-verbal students who are mute. Okay, so again, these test responses are for different types of students of determination. Now, another form of accommodation is the assistive technology accommodation. With all exams online, with everything that's moving to digitalized platforms, the education technology has advanced so much in the last couple of years that our students have, somehow learned or mastered how to take exams online. Assistive technology can play a very important, significant role in the lives of students of determination. Now, for the definition purposes, it is simply defined as an item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of a child with a disability. So, any assistive technology is there to improve the capability of the individual, of the student of determination, of a person who can do better with assistive technology. What are the different types of assistive technology? Way back in, I think about 10 to 12 years ago, the higher colleges of technology had an exhibition on assistive technology where there was a great display of different types of technology, including text-to-speech software, mind mapping software, word prediction software. There are several hardware and software solutions that can make a very big difference in the lives of students of determination. Now, what does text-to-speech software do? It verbalizes or speaks everything on the computer screen, okay, which includes textbooks, website content, graphics, control buttons, menus. So whatever you want, it will be able to convert the text into speech for you. Excuse me. Mind mapping software will help you to create visual linkages between concepts and information and put it in a nutshell for you, which will be easy for you to learn. So the entire lesson, which will be converted into a mind map, where through just an image, you will be able to master it. Word prediction, always it predicts the word based on a few letters you type. So once you, let's say, type GRA, it will give you the word as grammar. If you type STR, it will give you the word as structure. If you type SPEL, it will give you the entire word, which is spelling. So this is the advantage of using a word prediction software. This is very useful for students who have learning disability, because they have difficulty in in learning the full words, in writing full words, right? So whatever is on their mind, if they're able to even type a few letters, the word prediction software will be able to convert it into complete words, thus making it very easy for the student to write. So students who are dysgraphic, students who have a writing disability, can benefit greatly from a word prediction software. Again, editing software. This is a software which provides the user with auditory feedback, and they can they'll be able to hear it in the written text. So this not only helps editing written documents, it will take care of the grammar, the word usage, the structure, the spelling. So it will help you put your entire content into a perfect format. So from capital, for example, let's say you use a small letter where you need to write a capital letter. It will take care of that. It will immediately autocorrect and give you the word with the capital letter, with the full stop, with the punctuations, with the spellings. So the editing software takes care of that. Voice recognition software, you have to train your voice in this particular software. So once the voice recognition software gets to understand your voice, every time you dictate, it will be able to convert it to text. There are several recording devices again, whereby you can record the lectures, the workshops, and anything you can listen to which you believe is important. Okay, and the FM listening systems are amplification devices, which helps the receiver to get the voice accurately from the sender. Okay, so the voice is very clearly heard, and the communication is established between the sender and the receiver. So these amplification devices, there are these FM listening devices can be used in classrooms where the main gadget is placed on the table of the teacher, and the amplifier is the mic, which with the hearing aid form of a thing, which the student can attach himself to, and he will be able to hear the teacher very clearly. So there are several assistive technology devices, which are hardware and software solutions that can bring about a very big change in the lives of students of determination. So these are the assistive technology. And moving on to another aspect of accommodation, which is the accessibility. Now, in accessibility, you refer to the campus support. This includes, whether it is a school or a college, the parking spaces you assign, the doorways, the washrooms, the service counters, the classrooms, how well lit is your classroom, how are the students able to access it close to where they park. There is Dubai Universal Design Code. I encourage you all to go through it. It gives you very clear idea and indicators of what and how to access accessible features, and you can use that on your campus. I'm going a bit quick here because we have another 15 minutes only. So parking spaces, which should be close to the door, and the spaces it should be very clearly marked for students of determination. To reach to the classrooms, it's not enough to have the parking spaces alone. We need to have ramps everywhere so that they are able to move from building to building. Doorways, which are very, very important. The doorway should be low enough for a wheelchair user to open the door easily. Right? Some of the doors could be sliding, some of them should be, or whether it is easy to open. Now, physical accessibility on campus is very important for students of determination. And again, washrooms should have clear signage. They should be separated for the genders. They should have all accessible features like accessible sinks, handrails, towel rods, soap dispensers, and everything which is mandated. Okay, now what I would like to emphasize here is a little bit of tweaking. These are the accommodations that I'm talking to you about that can be provided to students of determination. However, you can be creative with your own accommodations. Okay, like in HCT, we do have something called medical parking. Now, those students who do not have the disability cards, can they park in the handicap parking or the disabled parking? No. But there are some students who need the accommodation of parking. So we created special areas very close to the building, and we called it the medical parking for those students who have medical issues, severe issues, chronic issues, who can access the parking area easily. Paper shredders. As you see in the image here, there is a small paper shredder. Now, how do I use that? I use it as a, let's say, an anxiety or an anger management or a worry eater. So every time you get angry, you get to write everything, every emotion of yours, and you shred it and you dump it and get rid with it. So you can use your own, creative ways of, accommodating students. How do you design a lunchroom for students with disabilities? How do you make the doors electronically assisted for students with disabilities? Do you give them, the remote access? Another interesting accommodation we came up with was during the pandemic, when students were in a lockdown. Some of them did not have access to internet. So we were providing internet access cards for students who can make use of the learning, and the learning is not compromised. Writing practice books. There are several ways you can teach students to write. You can prepare these resources yourself. So I would strongly suggest that you can also come up with creative set of accommodations which can suit your students. Now, I'm going to quickly rush through these. This is something I would like you all to use. This is a student profile. In the beginning, when the first time the student comes to you, this is very good information to learn from the student, what the student is best at, what the student needs help with. So this will give you a clear idea or an understanding of, you can take a picture of this slide and look at it and modify it based on your needs. So once you understand the student's strengths and areas where the student needs help, it will be easy for you to support the student, not just through accommodations, but in many other possible ways. Multidisciplinary team approach, I would say at any given circumstance, you need to have a multidisciplinary team from starting from your academic services, the system registrar office, which is admitting students with the entire student file, the student services department. How the counselor role is very, very critical in dealing with students of accommodation. The faculty are the first point of contact. They play a pivotal role in the educational experience of the students. So there is a lot that the teachers can do in class to support such students. The management, there are a few decisions, whether the student is in crisis or whether the student is suicidal, whether the student requires a management approval on something. So the management also has to be there to support the students. The academic and the student services team, they work from the word go, from the day the student gets admitted till the day the student graduates and follows up with the students as an alumni. So the students of determination also are helped to find jobs. Students, after finding jobs, even come back as alumni. So this relationship is the core of any educational institution. Now, again, as I told you, counseling services or counseling support is very, very critical in the life of a determined one. From admission to reviewing the medical reports to meeting the student with or without family, advising appropriate accommodations, having to submit relevant workflows, coordinating with relevant stakeholders, the teachers, the staff, the parents, the siblings, right? And this keeps changing every semester. So you need to review the accommodation. You need to provide counseling where necessary, focused interventions during exams, because most of them struggle with anxiety, with stress, with panic attacks. And you also need the parents time to time to review and inform about their progress and their level of functioning. Okay, I would quickly, I think I have just about 10 more minutes. So I would like to emphasize the importance of empowering the students. Our job or our business is just not providing accommodations or accommodation support. At every given stage, we need to teach them assertiveness. We need to help them to self-advocate for themselves, to talk for themselves. And here comes the cornerstones for our path in the lives of a determined one. Most importantly, we need to learn. We need to acquire the skills necessary. We need to have knowledge about students of determination, the what, why, and hows of the student of determination. We need to accept them wholeheartedly with their strengths and weaknesses, or their strengths or challenges, as I would say. And understanding this from an empathetic approach, putting ourselves in their shoes, makes a very big difference in providing relevant support and accommodations during their time with us. And of course, last but not the least, our behavior is a reflection of their success. So how we behave with regard to supporting them and in their success makes a lot of difference in their lives and in the overall success as such. So very quickly, what are the accommodations that can be provided to students with visual impairment? They need time to come to campus. They need course material in large print, audio tape, oral responses in place of written. You can take screenshots of this, or I'm very happy to provide you with the presentations. There is a lot that can be provided to students of different disabilities. However, these are the accommodation support that can be provided: assistive technology, classroom assignments, video magnifiers, extended time in exams and projects and assignments can make a big difference. What are the accommodations for students of physical disability? For physical disabilities, it's usually wheelchair accessible classrooms, study spaces, washrooms, and other facilities on campus. Personal assistants or helpers to push their wheelchairs if possible. Adaptive furniture in classroom and during exams. Computers with assistive technology programs for them, particularly, if it is communication or reading or writing. Oral response in place of written, or written in place of oral, depending on the physical challenges. Special arrangements for their practical and field work. Scribes need to be assigned, particularly for exams, for students who have labored writing or slow hand movements. Accessible parking, adaptive restrooms, extended times for exam, rest breaks between the exams, etc. Now, for the psychological conditions, what are the accommodations? Timetable planning, and that which can teach them how to deal with stress. Extra support and planning before the exam that will keep them well prepared. Exam invigilators should be aware of their issues so that they may know how to deal with during the exam periods. Counseling therapy, CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy, helps students with psychological conditions. Accessibility with attendance, particularly if they have rigid therapy sessions for treatment. Quiet room to rest. Extended times for assignment and exams. Rest breaks for tests. For learning disabilities, again, there is a lot that can be provided, but it's usually extra time, separate invigilation, computer assisted word processors, note takers, personal readers, oral response in place of written, scribes to record answers where necessary, handouts, talking calculators, distraction-free test room, separate invigilation again, which is extra time for tests and exams, rest breaks, and disregard grammar, spelling, punctuation, because usually students who have dyslexia or dysgraphia will have challenges with grammar and spelling. For attention difficulties, again, the accommodations to have, the staff should have awareness training on how to deal with redirecting students in class, separate room for testing so that they can insulate themselves from any form of noise and distractions, extra time for exams so that they can check all information is understood, and when they get distracted also for them to be able to redirect could be a challenge, so extra time really helps. Completing of teamwork, then large group workings, we can give them other alternate ways of testing. To have the same information conveyed in simple and in a very direct manner. Time to get accustomed to campus as such, because physically they can be easily lost. They need a lot of time to get around with things. Okay, changes in routines can also, displace them a lot. So a structure really helps. Extended time for assignments and project work can really help. For speech impairment, again, there is a lot, but modified assessments, text or written instead of oral, one-to-one testing instead of a large group or audience, extension of timeline, communication aids can really help, and emailing them instead of giving verbal instructions can make a big difference. As I told you, just as determined students, there are also students with medical conditions. Again, for medical conditions, you need to assess the medical condition and take care of the accommodations. You can be, again, very creative here, use of fridge for insulin, restroom, medical support, emergency arrangements, reserved parking, flexibility in attendance, like you need to have a flicker-free monitor for photosensitive epilepsy. So depending on the medical condition, you can provide several accommodations. So with this, I end my session, and now the mic is yours, or the floor is yours to ask the questions, and I'm very happy to answer. Let me look at the question and answers here. How to assess learning? No, would you explain? Let's take the first question. Would you explain how to deal with students with visual and speech impairments? I think I have covered that in the accommodations. if you usually for students with visual and speech impairments, these are two different types of accommodations that will be required. You can provide classroom accommodations, examination accommodations, and even accessibility accommodations for visual impairment. This can include a lot of assistive technology solutions. JAWS is a very good software which can be installed into the computers. The student will be able to hear every text, every word on the computer, and the learning is much faster. So a lot of assistive technology, there are magnifiers, there are handheld products which can support students with the visual impairment. The examination accommodations, if it is a paper pencil test, you need to provide the student with enlarged text. You can provide a student with different contrasts, black and yellow, yellow and black, white on black, black on white, which with enlarged text of 16 font will be very good for visual impairments. For speech, again, we need to avoid testing them orally. It can be a one-on-one. Group presentations should be strictly avoided for students with speech impairment. For more, you can always write to me. I'm going on to the next question. Due to lack of time, how to assess learning disabilities in higher education if the student did not report at admission. Now, this is a very big challenge. Many students are undiagnosed. So the first thing I would advise for the specialists is to have screening tools. If you are not licensed to run, standardized tests, Nelson and Wood, the WISC are all standardized tests to measure learning difficulties. If you are not licensed to assess standardized measures, you can always run some screening tools, and through the screening tools you can assess the level of reading, writing, or if it is dysgraphia, right? So sorry, dyspraxia, for example, which is fine motor difficulties which affects writing. So once you know that there is some issue, and through the screening process, you would have to refer the student externally for a complete diagnostic testing. So you can be ready, or you should be prepared that many students need not have gone through formal diagnostic testing. Is the academic performance low grades in is the only parameter? No, low grades can be one of the parameters. You can also ascertain this through the school grades. You can ask for the school reports, or if you can even have a word with the high school teachers or the counselor of the school to understand the student's performance, and then you will very easily know, yes, academic performance is a major indicator, but not the only indicator. So you have to assess overall. It's very good to have a meeting with the parents. So even the parents would be able to tell you whether the student has been a bright student or a struggling student, or if the student has been getting any form of private tutoring to do well. Yeah. So this is the way you can go about assessing learning difficulties. How to differentiate between being unable to follow deadline because learning disabilities versus behavior attitude. Okay, now if you behavior attitude, you will see in any student, whether a student is determined or not. Okay, now how do you differentiate this from a learning difficulty? Usually a student with learning difficulty will not have learning difficulty in one language alone. You will see a pattern in the difficulties in, let's say, other languages, in the same pattern of learning. If a student is dyslexic, for example, he or she will show challenges in reading. If the student has dysgraphia, you will clearly know in the way a student writes. So, and when you see there is a pattern in the reading or in the writing, and this will reflect during the exams also, you can be sure that he or she is symptomatic of learning disabilities. Behavior will fluctuate. There will not be a consistent pattern in the behavioral attitude. Sometimes you will find the student fluctuating between good behavior and a behavior showing signs and symptoms of learning disabilities. Since you are not the expert, the best way to do it is you screen the student and refer accordingly. Okay, I hope I have answered the questions on the question and answer. Any other questions? How will you include the student with learning disability in the mainstream? Is differentiation the same with inclusion? Okay, there are many students who enter mainstream learning, be it school or college. As I told you, they need to meet the requirements, the prerequisite for admission. Once they meet the prerequisite for admission, the student will automatically get admitted. Now, your job starts from the time the student gets admitted. Whether to ascertain the student has learning disabilities, very few students have a diagnostic report. Many students do not like being labeled, so they do not get diagnosis. Some students are just not aware that it could be a disability. They would just probably come and tell you, I've always had difficulty in writing. I could read very well, but I could never write well. I learned so well, but when it comes to exams, I'm just not able to write the best. So when you see there is a pattern, when you look for patterns, you will know that the student is showing mild or moderate or severe learning disabilities based on the issues he is continuously facing. Sometimes learning disabilities can be seen in the ability they comprehend information. They might be able to read or write. Yes, Dr. Mohammed. It says Dr. Mohammed would like to answer this question live. Please go ahead.
Which question? No, I just wanted for you to answer just because skip it. But since you answer it, it's fine.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much. What is the name of the application that we can download to help them? Okay. Well, there are several apps, there are several softwares, depending on the disability, you know. Assistive technology is a science in itself. It's a field of the future, of the present. So when you know that there is a student with a determined condition, all you need to do is to understand how you can help the student immediately through an assistive device. If it's a hearing difficulty, I know for sure it is the converser. It is an FM listening device. The converser is a beautiful product that can help students with hearing difficulty. Now, for example, let's say learning difficulty, the KNFB reader, there is something called a KNFB reader. This is a very good software that can be installed for students who have learning disabilities. This particular device, sorry, this is a software actually. It helps not only students with learning difficulties, but also students who have attention difficulties, students who have visual difficulties. You know, you might have heard about the Erlen syndrome. It can surface as a visual difficulty, but it is actually connected to learning difficulty. So it helps the learning difficulty students who also have Erlen syndromes. So there are plenty of applications in the market. You just need to understand what would be suitable for which student, because you need to modify it based on the student's needs. One thing we all need to understand is the fact that each student case is different. They all don't showcase similar comorbid conditions or similar circumstances or behaviors. Each student is different. You have to customize the accommodations based on the need of the student. I hope I have answered all your questions. It's difficult to convince parents about learning this. Yes, the stereotyping and the some of the parents find it very difficult to accept it even. They are in denial. Anyhow, thank you very much. Any other questions, any other doubts? And I don't know if we have more time to take more questions.
I think I need to explain to them the portal issues and that the
Definitely, Dr.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nafis. It's really an enjoyable, great, and informative session with a lot of information. I'm sure colleagues, they enjoyed it also the same. So if you can just stop sharing, Dr. Nafis, before ending the session, I will share my page to show them how to access the portal. So yes, good. So colleagues, simply if you want to have the recorded session, the presentation, the outlines, all information that we offer during these 4 days, it is available in EDU portal. I uploaded several times a PDF file to access simply the portal and find those information. And also the assignment will be there. Now I will share with you how the page will be and how you can access it. So this is the link that I already put several times, and Mahashi put it also from her side. So you will find the page like this. Invest in our community. This is an EDU Abu Dhabi University portal for invest in our community workshops. If you don't have an account, you need to create an account, or you go to the registration, to the first registration email, and you will find the link for the invest in our community portal. So when you go in, it will give you this page. In this page, you will find our current professional development certificate. Just you go immediately to it. If you enter for the first time, it will give you a word here called enrolled. The same, and then enrolled. Just you press enrolled, and it will take you immediately to the page. Announcements, guideline, assignment. I'll talk about it in a minute. Then module 1, Dr. Andrea, with her outline and her presentations. My module, Disability Covered by Special Education, with my presentation and the outline. And Dr. Rasad's presentation with his outline and PowerPoint presentation. Dr. Nafis will come soon because it will take some time after finishing the session. They will upload it immediately in the system, and we will get the presentation from Dr. Nafis to upload it here. What you need to do, you need just to download the assignment. And the assignment is a reflection assignment. You will go to this link, and there is a study about teachers' capacity to create inclusive learning environment. What you need to do, write your reflection about this study, identify 2 to 3 common critical issues in your school related to dealing with people of determination, and provide your suggestion to solve them. It should be not, you don't need to exceed 1,000 words. And we don't put this in consideration always, but try to be direct, and don't forget to put your name. Then you will do the submission. The submission link will be uploaded tonight, because always we upload it after finishing the our modules or our certificate. I hope this is at least give you some idea about how to enter to the portal. If there is any question, you can ask me directly about it. What is the format of the self-reflection? A PDF format or Word format? Yeah, inshallah. We are like, this is not the last one. This is the last one in the EDU 2030 series. We will be having From January, inshallah, another professional development series we will share with you all the information. It's easy to access it, easy to work on it, and then you can even if you save it in your computer, you don't need to each time. اللينك الخاص بالواجب هل سيتم إرساله إلى الإيميل الخاص بنا؟ لا يتم إرساله. The assignment only is available on the web, in the portal. We don't send it by email. So you need to access the portal to be able to answer the assignment and to submit your reflection. Tomorrow it will be activated and you have till 15th of December to submit it. It's fine, Dr. Alia. If you want to write it in Arabic, it's okay. There is no worry. If you face any problem, just reply to the email, the Zoom email that you received. We will find an email from Mr. Anand. Reply to that email and they will support you, inshallah. I hope now it is clear. ممكن باللغة العربية دكتورة عليا ممكن لما ندخل على البورتال نجد كل المعلومات موجودة سواء العروض أو الفيديوهات والواجب ممكن تقديمه باللغة العربية ما في مشكلة إن شاء الله. So thank you all. I'll give it to Maha. Maha, the mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad, for your demonstration on how to enter the portal and receive the certificate and the reflection. Dr. Nafis, thank you so much for this great and informative presentation. Hope you all enjoyed our fourth session. Please remember again to, if you want to access the recording sessions and to get your certificate, you need to register in the ADU community portal. Have a great evening. Looking forward to seeing you in our coming PD certificates. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Maha. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you.